Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock and we'll call this meeting to order. Carrie, will you please take roll?
Chair Brooks.
Here.
Vice Chair Ariscotta.
Here.
Regent Boylan. Regent Brager.
Here.
Regent Brown. Regent Carvalho. Regent Cruz Crawford.
Here.
Regent Del Carlo. Regent Downs.
Here.
Regent Goodman.
Here.
Regent McMichael. Regent Perkins.
Here.
Regent Tarkanian. You have a quorum present.
Thank you, Carrie. Regent Goodman, would you mind leading us in the pledge? All right, thank you, Regent Goodman. Deputy Attorney General Joe Becker is with us today to support us with open meeting law. Welcome, Mr. Becker. Thanks a lot for being here. We appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move to agenda number 1, public comment. Do we have any public comment in Elko?
There is no public comment in Elko.
Is there any public comment in Reno?
Yes, there is.
Kent Irvin, K-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-N, Nevada Faculty Alliance. Just a couple of things. First, we have provided in the written public comment our survey of faculty at the 7 institutions, along with some key findings. Not surprisingly, low salaries are a major concern, but also the lack of advancement opportunities, and that's something that NSHE can work on without legislative funding. There are also significant differences in campus climate and the state of shared governance at various institutions. Second, Assembly Bill 224, the bill to authorize collective bargaining in state law for NSHE professionals, will have its first hearing next Thursday morning in Assembly Government Affairs. We thank the regents who spoke in favor of the bill at the February meeting, and we look forward to seeing AB 224 through the legislative process. Thank you.
Dr. Amy Cavanaugh, A-M-Y-C-A-V-A-N-A-U-G-H, Truckee Meadows Community College Faculty Senate Chair. I am here today to read you a motion that was passed by our Faculty Senate on February 10th of this year. The TMCC Faculty Senate emphatically supports BDR 155, known as the Collective Bargaining for NSHE Professional Employees Bill. We recommend that the Board of Regents support the bill and urge its passage by the legislature of the state of Nevada during its 2023 general session. Therefore, be it resolved by this body that a statement of our emphatic support of BDR 155 be put into writing and a copy of said statement be dispatched to all voting members who will consider supporting its passage. Thank you.
Is there any more additional public comment there? In Reno? Okay, I don't see any.
That's all the public comment?
Thank you. Real quick, just for the record, I want to acknowledge that Regent Tarkanian has joined us. Is there any public comment in Las Vegas? Yeah.
How you guys doing this evening? My name is Frank Friends, F-R-A-N-K-F-R-I-E-N-D-S, like the TV show, I guess. I'm just here to comment with veterans in politics and a couple other things I've noticed as a father, especially here for UNLV. We got students that get attacked on campus. There's areas that are dimly lit, and we're paying, I don't know how many millions of dollars for this campus, for these students to be here. We have a lot of areas where we have low recidivism rate. We don't keep the students, they go elsewhere. You have a board member who wants to carry a weapon, 100%. I'm okay with that, but why aren't our students? They get attacked on these campuses. They have no way to defend themselves. They have dark areas. Last time we talked to Ms. Goodman and we did an interview with her, she even admitted that, yes, these areas have been dark and she's had concerns about them, but yet nobody has done anything about these areas. They're still dark. My wife just graduated from there. Her friend got attacked going through the parking lot. No way to defend herself. Nobody there to be there for her. And we got teachers that are selling their books to students on their subjects. These students are paying astronomical amounts of money. They have all this debt. And you guys have all these extra classes they got to take. I don't care if my doctor or my financial analyst knows anything about world history. We should have a fast track to get them through college faster, directly dedicated to the subjects that they are getting degrees for. They shouldn't have to take 3-4 years of English so that they can add numbers and punch things together. Doctors should have a fast track too. We have some of the best medical doctors and facilities here, but yet they take longer, and then they got to worry and they got to work 20-hour shifts to pay off these debts. When we could take a lot of these classes out and we could fast track a lot of people, we have the ability, and so do you guys. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to move into agenda number 2. So agenda number 2 is, well, we have this as an agenda because upon the request of Regent Boylan, Del Carlo, and McMichael, this item has been brought forward for the board to consider a revision in board bylaws, Article 4, Section 2, which governs the election of board officers. For context, I'd like to remind the board that this bylaw provision was recently revised at the September 2022 quarterly board meeting. At that time, the board amended the bylaws to make the election cycle follow the calendar year commencing January 1st, rather than the academic year commencing July 1st. This item proposes to return the election cycle to the previous timeline, which would follow the academic year. At this time, I'll open up the floor for either a motion or discussion.
Regent Perkins here. I'd like to make a motion to leave it as it is.
I second that motion.
I'm sorry, real quick. Regent Perkins, I did not hear the motion. Can you please restate the motion?
To leave the elections the way they are now, following the calendar or election year.
Okay, so the motion is to not make any change to the bylaw.
And
Yes,
I
correct.
second it.
What's that? Okay. So it sounds like we have a motion to leave the bylaw as is in terms of the election cycle, which would commence on January 1st. This was seconded by Regent Perkins. Is there any discussion?
Excuse me, the second was actually, Regent Perkins here. The second was actually by Regent Tarkanian.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying. So our second was by Regent Tarkanian.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that we have a correct motion based on how the agenda is written.
Jimmy Martinez for the record. The current motion is to do nothing. So technically, if this board does not vote at all on this motion, nothing would change. So no, the board does not need a motion to take no action. And that's ultimately what this vote would do. So if this vote does not carry, nothing happens. If it carries, nothing happens. So essentially, it's an irrelevant motion. What the board may wish to do is see if there are any motions for approval and move forward from there. Or if there are no motions, then it could be stated there are no motions, and the chair can move on to the next item.
So Regent Perkins here, do you need me to withdraw the motion?
Okay.
I guess the question is, if we if we vote on this, it's not a policy change, so we would only need 7 votes, correct? If it's, even though it's nothing, and then we're also setting precedent that we voted on something, we're keeping it the way it is. And then would that play moving forward if it goes on the agenda again, if it's being requested again?
Jimmy Martinez for the record. Again, this is a bylaw revision, so it does need a supermajority vote. And
Even if it's not changing, I'm sorry.
I mean,
I know, it's weird. I don't know.
it's an odd question because either way, nothing happens. So really, the motion itself is irrelevant, and if there is no motion to approve, then I think that speaks just as loudly as a carried vote to leave it the same. And Regent Perkins, to your question, if you would like to withdraw your motion, you may do that also.
I'm just asking, is that necessary, or do we just want to go ahead and take the vote just for giggles?
Thank you, Regent Perkins. I just want to address Regent Breger, who has a question.
To Mr. Martinez, so if we technically do nothing because there was no motion to change that came up, my concern would be how many times could we go through this process if, I'm going to just state it, the people that wanted it aren't here or speaking up. I'm a little concerned that, are we going to keep playing this game? And I'm going to phrase it that way. I apologize, but that's what it seems that we had something that they did before previously in September. Now there was information that they wanted to change it. Now the information isn't being brought forward. What makes it stay a policy? Is there, how many times can you do it? And does a year have to go by? Does 2 years have to go by? Is there anything that you can add to that to help us? Because I think once it's done today, it should be done.
Jimmy Martinez for the record, there's no bylaw provision on preventing 3 Regents from bringing this in the future. So to your point, it could, whether or not this board takes action today or not, it doesn't prevent that either way in the future.
So can we create a policy that would state a change could not be changed again within a certain period of time?
That could be something for new business that any Regent could put on new business and
Okay, well then
could be
I will
brought
bring,
back.
I'll bring it up in new business then. Thank you.
Regent Perkins, just for clarification, do you want to withdraw your motion, or do you want to keep the motion? And from what I understand, I'm sorry, Regent Perkins, from what I understand, your motion is to keep the bylaws that we have regarding the calendar year of the election cycle, which would begin on January 1st.
That is correct. But if we don't need a motion, then I will withdraw it. If we do, it can stand. So that's what I was waiting for Mr. Martinez to yay or nay.
Jimmy Martinez for the record, yeah, the motion is not necessary to leave everything as is. So if you would like to leave it as is, then I would recommend that you can withdraw the motion.
Okay, I will do that then. I will withdraw the motion.
Withdrawing.
So then Regent Tarkanian would withdraw her second of that motion.
I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, if I might, that I wish she wouldn't withdraw it. If it was put on the agenda, let's do it. Let's show what it was as it was brought before us.
Thank you, Regent Tarkanian. It sounded like Regent Perkins did withdraw her motion, so I will open up the floor for a motion regarding this agenda item.
So moved. Second from Regent Breger.
So Regent Tarkanian had moved this. Regent Breger had seconded. Regent Tarkanian then is following in suit with a motion that we will keep our election cycle as is, commencing January 1st with no change to the bylaw, and that was seconded by Regent Brager. Do we have any discussion? Regent Goodman.
I would just like to offer some experiential points. I have worked on boards, and you don't always get your way. And I have worked at the city, and that's a board that a lot of people more often than not disagreed. And I believe that we need to work better on our communication, because this is a Friday afternoon and I'm here, and the regents that put this item on the agenda did not give me the respect to show up to this meeting. And I look forward to chatting with them and having a conversation and building a bridge, because this is not conducive to proper governing.
Thank you, Regent Goodman. I'd like to recognize Regent Downs.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So this item, it sounds like it's not going in that direction. I would say, I mean, I do see some value in general of having an academic calendar. I'm not saying that I'm not opposed. I'm not against what we currently have with the January 1st calendar, but I would not vote for something to be changed right now, and maybe in 2024, because I think we just need time to make things, to let the current leadership run its course. But I do see value in having leadership take office and serve the full term as a Senate chair would, or as a student leadership position would. That's just a side point. Again, I wouldn't support any changes for this June/July. It would be for 2024 for any changes.
Thank you, Regent Downs. Regent Arascata. I'm sorry, I should have addressed you as Vice
Thank you,
Chair
Chair.
Arascata, so you have to excuse me.
Not necessary, but thank you, Chair Brooks. The majority of the board that's here today, we want to move forward. We want to bring positivity. We want to focus, most importantly, on the students. Focus on legislature. Focus on policy. Focus on faculty. Focus on what is going to make the system stronger. At least those here today do not need a fractured system. We want to get this done, and we want to do what's going to be best for our students, for our faculty, and for our staff. I currently support the calendar year in which we are recognizing board leadership. With that calendar year falls in place with federal government, state government, with numerous aspects of governing that bring positivity to a system. We need to work together. A fragmented system is not a good system. But the individuals that we have here today are a strong, united group, and I will work with them and work with the others who are not here today. We need to work together, and I look forward to doing that with the other 12. Thank you much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Arascata. Regent Cruz Crawford.
Oh, good. I didn't know if you were seeing me there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to echo what Regent Downs stated. It does make sense to do an academic year, but I do think it's just fresh leadership. I have no doubt that if we did change it, I think you would be voted in again, but I do want consistency. But I do agree with him. It does make sense in academic year. And then I did want to speak on what the Vice Chair was speaking about bringing us together. Obviously, some of us are missing today, but as a chair and a vice chair, you have a lot of power to help support, bring this group together. So, calling in and checking in on all your regents and affording everyone the kindness. I'm looking forward to you two working together to help supporting with leadership to bring us together as regents so we can we make decisions together. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Cruz Crawford. Is there any more discussion? So seeing no discussion, we will then take a roll call vote on this agenda item. And what we will, so an affirmative yes will be that there is no change to the bylaw. If you vote no or nay, that means you are interested in a change in the bylaw. So again, if you vote yes on this, there will be no change to the bylaw. And if you vote no or nay, there will be there would be change to the bylaw.
Your chair.
Yes.
And Mr. Martinez, question. As it is written on the agenda, if we don't mind, upon the request of the Regent Boylan, Del Carlo McMichael, the board would consider approval of a revision, policy governing the election of officers that will occur the last meeting of the academic. So I'm reading it as the agenda states, and I just need a little bit of clarification from Councilor Martinez on this. If we vote yes, that means we approve the revision of board policy. Is that how I'm reading it, Mr. Martinez?
Jimmy Martinez for the record. So the motion is to leave the bylaws as currently written. So a vote yes in favor of this motion would leave the bylaws as is.
Thank you.
Carrie, do you want to take the roll call vote, please?
Mr. Chair, if I could just confirm with council, we are still in need of 9 votes in the affirmative, even if there is no change proposed.
Jimmy Martinez for
It's
the
not a
record.
revision.
Yeah, I think a simple majority vote would carry here just because it is not changing the bylaws.
Thank you. Mr. Chair? Yeah.
Yes.
Regent Tarkanian.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ariscotta.
Yes.
Regent Boylan. Regent Brager.
I'm going to make a statement. Carrie has my vote written down because I am not comfortable that we go around a room when everybody is normally here. I feel like it may not be a rolling quorum or a quorum, but when you get all the way over to here when there's normally people, you already know what the vote is. So I'm uncomfortable with that. So for my comfort, you may, at the end, when everybody's voted, read my vote.
Chair Brooks.
Yes.
Regent Brown. Regent Carvalho. Regent Cruz Crawford.
Yes.
Regent Del Carlo. Regent Downs.
Yes.
Regent Goodman.
Yes.
Regent McMichael. Regent Perkins.
Yes.
And Regent Brager voted yes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll move right into the next agenda item, which is new business. Is there any new business? Regent Brager?
Yes, sir. I would like to have an agenda item placed on the next agenda that is appropriate to discuss a policy change in regards to when we have made a vote such as what we did today, that we should have to stand on a vote for at the very least 1 year. And I can get that crafted with legal if I need to. But this was an exercise for what I'm not certain for those that called for this motion. And I think there should be a viable way to make something solid. We could go back and forth every few months on items, and I think it's very unprofessional, quite frankly. And so I would like to have a policy change in regards to that.
Thank you, Regent Brager. Is there any new business? Any other new business? Okay, great. Then we'll move right into public comment. Is there any public comment in Elko? Is there any public comment in Reno?
No, there is not.
Is there any public comment in Las Vegas? Regent Breger, you're recognized during public comment.
Thank you very much. Regent Breger, for the record, I will preface this with saying in my 24 years of serving on the school board and the Clark County Commission, I have never done this in the past. This is that important to me that I feel like I need to make a public statement in regards to this, the chancellor search. And I wrote it so that I could read it and not miss a word. When I was elected to the Board of Regents was with great hope that we could move the board forward into a new era of transparency and with a renewed focus on students. That's why it pains me to have to make a record in opposition to the chancellor's search protocols. The approach we are taking is a step backward, and if we choose to go down this path, we will never know if the person best suited to restore balance and allow our instructions to thrive would be chosen due to the way that we are moving forward. I can't be silent as this process appears set to move forward. I urge my colleagues that are on the committee and those that are not to consider the search criteria and plan so the Nevada system of higher education can find and hire the best person available in an objective and open fashion. We're at a turning point with the system. The search for a new chancellor is too important to restrict the candidate pool to only those currently known to board members. There is a better way, and now is a time to display the courage of our convictions and to get the right chancellor for all Nevadans. And I'm prefacing with that I have no idea. I've never been in a position in 3 superintendent searches and 3 county manager searches. I have historical knowledge and understanding. I have no idea where this is going, how it's going. Nothing was presented to the full board, which I find is not correct. I think that it would be very important to have at least no less than 4 and someone that this is not their end career. If they have to continue on to do something else, you're going to get a better candidate due to the fact they can't just come here and not perform. And there's been too many failed too many failed chancellors. I do not want to be a part of a failed system, and I refuse to be part of a failed system. That's why I'm saying this today. Thank you very much.
Is there any other
Mr.
public?
Chairman,
Yes, Regent Tarkanian.
I'd like to say that I agree wholeheartedly with Susan. I was dismayed that we got into this thing about how long the chair should last before we take our vote. There were so many more important things to do. I said to myself, why are we doing this? Right now, the perception in the community is that the Board of Regents are not working well together and they're not working on the right things. And so I agree wholeheartedly with what she said. I feel we have to be more professional. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Regent Tarkanian. Is there any other public comment? Seeing no public comment, we will adjourn this meeting.